So I'm Emily Pfeuffer. I'm a plant pathologist here at University of Kentucky, and my focus is management of diseases of vegetables and tobacco. And today I'm going to be talking with you all about tips and tricks for vegetable seed saving. And so if that's not a hint toward, if my background isn't a hint toward what the majority of my talk is going to be about, I don't know what is. Vegetable diseases. So what's seed saving? It's the act of preserving the reproductive material, or seeds, of plants to be sown in subsequent years. And we save seeds for various different reasons. Some folks are saving seeds to preserve their family varieties. Others are preserving seeds to maintain genetic diversity. And then lastly, some folks are saving seeds because there's some cost savings involved. I think the majority of producers in Kentucky that are saving seeds are doing it for the first reason: maintenance of family varieties of a special kind of bean, of, maybe a tomato that your grandmother grew that you can't buy quite that same tomato. It doesn't come out of the seed packet. So for all those good reasons to save seed, what are some reasons why we shouldn't save seed? Well, the major one is diseases. A number of different plant diseases can be carried forward from generation to generation on saved seed. And the likelihood of carrying those diseases forward in seed that you save yourself is higher in some cases than in seed that's purchased commercially. The reason for that is because there are seed screening programs that most large seed producers have. And so the diseases that can be carried forward in seed, they can be fungal, bacterial, viral. The bacterial and viral diseases tend to be a little bit more common coming from seed, but there are fungal pathogens that can be carried forward, as I'll discuss in a couple later slides. And so the disease-causing organisms that can cause plant diseases, which we call pathogens that are seed-borne, they're microscopic, they're tiny. We can't necessarily visually see those without the power of a microscope. And so just for comparison here, in this picture, is an electron micrograph, a very high-powered microscopic view of these microbes. And so the F indicates that's a growing fungal hypha. That's a single strand of fungus growing there. The Y is a replicating yeast cell, a single cell. And the B, you can see a little clump of bacteria over there on the right side of that electron micrograph. So these are tiny, tiny, tiny organisms, ones that we won't be able to see with the naked eye on the coat of seeds. So diseases result from infections by these types of pathogens. The pathogens can be on the surface of seeds, or some of them are actually within the seed coat. And so, optimally, to manage these diseases, we would be wanting to treat both the exterior and the interior of the seeds. And then I mentioned there are a number of different pathogens that can be carried forward from plant generation to plant generation in or on seed. So here are some common fungal diseases of tomato that can be seed transmitted. One that's fairly common both in the field but also in greenhouse situations is Fusarium wilt. Also Fusarium crown rot can be carried this way. This pathogen is present within the seed coat. It's not on the exterior of the seed, and so hot water heat treatment might be the only way to eliminate that pathogen from tomato seed. Septoria leaf spot can be carried on the surface of seeds. That's a really common one in tomato. Bacterial diseases tend to be commonly transmitted via seed, and that would be all of the common tomato bacterial diseases, including bacterial spot in the upper left, bacterial speck, which is in the lower right picture. Spot and speck The symptoms look similar, but they are actually caused by two distantly related groups of bacteria. The way that you can differentiate the two is speck is a really superficial lesion that you can almost just pick off with your fingernail, where spot ends up affecting the plant tissue going into the tissue, and those lesions tend to enlarge much more. And then bacterial canker causes sort of like a bird's eye type spot. That one is notorious for being seed transmitted as well. All three of these pathogens can be transmitted. They're optimally transmitted on the coat of the seed, but canker can actually be within the seed coat. Bacterial leaf spot of pepper is the most common disease of pepper, and that one is another one that's notorious for being seed transmitted on pepper seed. Also anthracnose. The anthracnose pathogen can be transmitted via seed as well, but that would be on the exterior of the seed, not inside the seed coat. A number of different common diseases of cucurbits can be seed transmitted, especially viral diseases. That's a common way that virus problems originate in cucurbit crops. Overall, when we're thinking about viral diseases, they tend to be some of the most rare diseases in our vegetable crops. They're not frequently occurring as compared to fungal and bacterial diseases. Bacterial fruit blotch of watermelon is exclusively seed transmitted. And unfortunately, since that one is transmitted within the seed coat, watermelon seed cannot be hot water seed treated. Unfortunately, we don't have a very effective way to manage that disease at this point. Anthracnose can also be seed transmitted, but again, that's another case where the pathogen would be on the exterior of the seed rather than on the interior. Mosaic virus on lettuce is another one that's seed transmitted, as well as spinach leaf spot, which is caused by a fungal pathogen. In general, with the exception of a few of the wilt type fungi, most fungal pathogens end up being transmitted on the exterior of the coat. Except for the wilt ones, wilt gets inside the seed coat. Bacteria can be either or, and viral pathogens, typically they are within the seed coat. Anthracnose of bean, that's our most common disease of green beans here in Kentucky. That one can be transmitted on the exterior of seeds, and again, there are a number of different viral diseases of beans that can also be transmitted within bean seeds. Couple bacterial disease of onion can be seed transmitted. That one can also be introduced via sets. Although there is information on treating sets, I wouldn't recommend hot water seed treating onion sets because I don't think that it would be very effective. It wouldn't have a high efficacy rate. So you may end up cleaning some of the onions, but it's unlikely that you would clean up all of them. Botrytis necron, that botrytis is a very general pathogen, and it is most likely that that one is kind of hitching a ride on the outside of the seed rather than becoming systemically infected. Black rot is the most common bacterial disease of the cole crops in Kentucky. That one is another one that's notoriously seed transmitted. That one can also utilize weeds as green bridges. So moving from weedy borders by rain splash and bouncing into the cash crop. And you can see symptoms of two other seed-transmitted diseases there as well, bacterial soft rot and alternaria leaf spot on cabbage. So how common is seed transmission? I've run through this long list of different seed-transmitted vegetable diseases, and so you'd think that it's extremely common, right? Well, in general, it's not that common. So the rate of seed transmission is directly affected by how much disease is present in the parent crop. So if you're doing a good job of managing disease in the parent crop, it's unlikely that you'll have a large proportion of your seed that's infested. So for instance, with bacterial spot of tomato and pepper, two really notorious seed transmitted diseases, in general, the infestation rates range between 1.5% and 5% of the seed that's produced in a single batch of seed, and so that's a fairly low percentage. However, 27% or more of watermelon seed from seed lots can be infested with bacterial fruit blotch. Potato blackleg is one, and you can see that picture in the lower right there. That's what blackleg looks like. That's a bacterial pathogen, and it's pretty much solely seed transmitted, and that one can sort of wax and wane, and so in some years there's no issue at all with blackleg in potato seed lots, but in other years, like this year, it can be pretty frequent. And so what that disease looks like in the field is more or less producers will plant out infested seed potato and nothing comes up, and so they assume, well, the soil was too cold, or you know, there was something wrong with my early preparation, or maybe they had some pythium damping off. And what happened this year is rather the potatoes just rotted in the ground, and the reason was not pythium, it was potato blackleg, a bacterial disease. So how do we select seeds to save? You want to be choosy. So you don't want to save seeds at the end of the season. I always recommend saving seeds from your first tomatoes, saving seeds from your first beans. And that's for two different reasons. One, disease generally takes time to build up, and those first tomatoes, those first beans, those first whatever you're growing, disease is likely to be at an extremely low level or not even present yet. And so you're more likely to be saving what's good rather than what's bad. So what I suggest to producers is imagine the crop that you want to end up with next year. Wherever you're saving the seed from, that's sort of a glimpse into the future of what your crop's going to look like at the end of the year next year. And so you want to be saving seed from the best produce. Secondly, if you're growing something that's open pollinated, you know, there can be some open pollination that happens over the course of a summer. And so if you're pretty dedicated to maintaining the integrity of, you know, the genetic background of that seed, you'd be better off saving seed from early in the season, maybe when pollen is limited, and there would be less of a chance for some cross-pollination activity there. And so for those reasons, I recommend always save seeds from the early produce, not from the late. And so that's just an example there. Good on the left, not so good on the right. So what else can we do to prevent seed diseases? Seed treatments. And so what's a seed treatment? It's a process that utilizes chemicals or heat to eliminate disease-causing organisms. And there's an example there. So there are different types of seed treatments. The top 3 on this list are not available to homeowners. You know, these are more commercial type methods on the top. The second 2 major bullet points, those are things that some homeowners and small scale producers might be able to take advantage of. So these might include some chemical treatments like fungicide dust or pelleted seed. Usually those treatments are administered by companies, but in a few cases we have some examples where a producer can actually administer those treatments themselves. And then finally, hot water treatment or, you know, an over-the-counter type chemical treatment as well. So what are some seeds that can be hot water treated? And I should preface this with my program has my extension program has an active um, basically an active set of equipment that can travel around the state for extension agents to deliver a hot water seed treatment program in their counties. The key with hot water seed treatment is temperature control, and so we loan out these water baths that have very specific temperature controls, because basically the idea behind hot water seed treatment is that you're heating the seed to the very brink of its viability, such that you're exceeding the disease-causing organism's viability. You're killing the pathogen without killing the seed. So if you go above and beyond the prescribed temperature, you end up hurting your germination rate. If you shoot too low and you don't reach that critical temperature, you don't clean the seed effectively and it's useless. Like the process was useless. And so here's a long list of seeds that can be heat treated. I get a lot of questions about, well, can I treat my beans? Can I treat my peas? And the answer is no. The reason you can't treat the crops that are indicated there is because they produce a much fleshier seed, such that when we treat them in hot water, the seeds take up water, they imbibe that water, and then you can't store them. You can't, their germination is significantly hurt. Once you do try to sow them, it just doesn't work out very well when you try to hot water seed treat these. Potatoes are so fleshy that they're impossible to treat effectively with hot water, because the heat just doesn't penetrate that fleshy tuber very well. And so this table is from ID 36, the University of Kentucky publication. It lists the critical temperatures for seed treatment and also the treatment time. And then I have a long list of materials needed. If any producer that's attending this presentation is interested in doing hot water seed treatment locally in your county, I encourage you to get in touch with your county agent. Tell them to get in touch with me, and I'm happy to loan out the equipment and train them. Agents can give this program, in my absence, but we also have an extension associate that'll travel with the equipment. Deliver the program, and then producers can bring their seed with them and do the hands-on program there, and then leave the program with hot water treated seed that they can be confident has some pathogens eliminated from it. So some of the benefits from hot water treatment, it's effective for both internal and external pathogens, and it's chemical free. So there's it's just hot water. There are no chemicals in the mixtures. So it's fine for organic producers. It's fine for folks that may be concerned about some chemicals associated with their crops. Some of the disadvantages, the big one, right, is that it doesn't protect the plants once the seeds have germinated. It can be time consuming. And the big one is that exact temperatures are necessary. So I can't stress enough having not doing this on the stove top, but rather utilizing some analytical type equipment that holds temperatures pretty stable. We even have backup thermometers on our water baths just to ensure that we are coming up to the appropriate treatment temperature. So how do you do it? The first step is to prepare your equipment. Typically we run 2 water baths. One is at sort of an acclimation temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we have treatment baths that once we place the seeds in the bath, that's when we start the timer. The second step is to prepare the seeds, and so I'm going to show you how to do that here from my desk in my office. There's no high-tech equipment for this part. So this is just a coffee filter that you can get at any grocery store. I recommend labeling it with a pencil, not a pen. Pen can run. So I have cilantro here. I'd label it with the date, and if you're doing this with other folks, you're going to want to put your name on it as well. So you just open that up, tear open your seed packet here. Now, it's important to note that the seed that you're using, it has not already been treated with fungicide, right? So there's none of that bright colored fungicide dust on there. If it has been treated with fungicide, it's okay to treat that, to hot water treat that seed, but just keep in mind that you're not going to get fungicide activity once you get that dust wet. So you just pop your seeds here into your coffee filter. You don't want to treat more seed than you're actually going to need that year. So only treat as much as you plan on sowing. You fold in the corners, just kind of make a little packet with your coffee filter, fold it over again, and then just with a stapler, just staple the ends shut like this. And so there's your little packet. In the pictures, you know, this looks pretty much like what's in the pictures. The key here is that, you know, you've got the seeds contained, but they have full surface contact with the water. And so you might want to dip this a little bit in the water just to ensure that the packet is fully imbibed with water. And then once the hot water bath comes up to treatment temperature, that's when you start your timer. So then you pre-treat the seeds in a 100-degree water bath, then put it in the treatment bath. When that comes up to temperature, then you set your timer for the exact number of minutes for treatment time. So again, if you go over the prescribed treatment time, you can hurt your germ. Basically, you start killing seeds if they're in there too long. If they're not in there long enough, the treatment isn't effective at eliminating pathogens from seed. And so then the last step in hot water seed treatment is to ensure the seeds are fully dry before storage. So, you know, you want to leave these out on like a paper plate or just you know, a glass dish overnight. Ensure that the seeds are well separated and they're fully dried. You don't want to treat seed more than once. Just heat treat it once. If you treat it more than once, you know, it's going to hurt your germ rate. Seeds are best used, you know, within 3 weeks or so of this hot water treatment. And so the best time to do a hot water treatment is in the spring, right? So it's February, March, April, when you're getting ready to start your vegetable transplants indoors, when you're dreaming of your spring gardens or you're dreaming of that first tomato. That's when you want to be hot water seed treating. So there are a couple other treatments that are aimed at seed savers. One is just a household chlorine bleach treatment. You can make up these packets similar to what I described with the hot water treatment, and you can do that in bleach. We recommend using a 1-to-4 solution, so 1 part household bleach, 4 parts water in your mixture. Soak the seed for about a minute and then rinse. What's key here is that's going to be effective on eliminating external seed pathogens, but it will not do anything against viral pathogens, against wilt fungi that may be within that seed coat. Trisodium phosphate is it's a commercial cleaner that you can usually get that at you know, big box home improvement stores. That is effective at eliminating external seed pathogens as well. Where that product has really been proven is in eliminating viral pathogens. I know some producers that have been reasonably satisfied if they do have a viral pathogen issue in their greenhouse or in their production area, well, specifically in their greenhouse, they've used a TSP solution to clean their greenhouse structure of mechanically transmitted virus. That requires a longer seed soak, about 15 minutes. It's critical to rinse with fresh water after both of these chemical treatments, so that again you're not going to be hurting those tender seedlings that are emerging from your treated seed. So your success after seed treatment, you know, it can be marginal, right? If you don't continue the disease management process after treating your seed, basically treating seed isn't going to give you a golden ticket for the rest of the season. It's just one piece of the puzzle. And so, you know, we always recommend planting into soils that are adequately warm. Be sure that you're gardening in good planting sites and maintaining plant health in general. A stressed plant is a plant that's more susceptible to disease. We recommend rotating crops, managing weeds, and then becoming aware of common diseases in your planting area such that you can identify them quickly and then identify the way they should be treated. And then the last piece of the puzzle is know where to get help. So go to your county extension agent. They're your local source of research-based information. If you throw them a curveball and they're not sure how to answer it, they come to us, the extension specialists on campus or at research centers. We have a number of IPM scouting guides available for producers in Kentucky, including cucurbit crops, solanaceous crops, legume vegetables. We have a high tunnel guide now, sweet corn, cole crops, and natural enemies as well. And in addition to that, I have a number of plant pathology, plant disease fact sheets on different vegetable diseases as well. So with that, I'm Emily Pfeufer. That was kind of a crash course in seed treatment and thinking about what it might look like for you in your garden or in your small planting. I will note that I don't typically recommend saving seed for very large scale producers, and the reason for that is because none of these seed treatments are a 100% have a 100% efficacy rate. They'll knock back most seed transmitted pathogens, but it won't necessarily be perfect. And so if someone's livelihood is 100% on the line, I typically recommend purchasing commercially treated seed, you know, that's been through some seed disease indexing processes. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about saving vegetable seeds and where to go from here. This is a pretty timely presentation because this is about when our disease pressure explodes. And so if that hasn't happened for you yet, now is the time to put up those seeds for next season.